Once upon a time, in a quaint English village surrounded by rolling hills, there lived a young man named Edward. Edward was a dreamer, full of ambition and determined to make a better life for himself and his struggling family. One day, he heard of a bustling city where opportunities were said to be endless. With hope in his heart, Edward decided to embark on a journey to this city, believing it was his chance to change his destiny. As Edward packed his bag, his father handed him a pair of old, sturdy boots. "These have seen many miles," his father said, patting him on the shoulder. Edward was grateful, but slightly disappointed. The boots were heavy and well-worn. Nonetheless, he set off on his journey with great enthusiasm. After walking a few miles, Edward felt a sharp pain in his foot. Stopping by the roadside, he discovered a small pebble lodged in his boot. Annoyed, he shook it out and continued on his way, muttering under his breath. As the days passed, Edward's journey grew harder. Time and again, he found another pebble in his boot. Each time, it caused him to stop, remove the stone, and lose precious time. Frustrated, he began to question, "Why does this keep happening to me?" One day, an elderly man sitting on a wooden bench noticed Edward limping along the dusty road. "What's troubling you, young man?" he asked kindly. "It's these blasted pebbles," Edward exclaimed. "They're slowing me down and making my journey unbearable." The old man chuckled and said, "Perhaps the pebbles are not the problem. Perhaps the way you see them is." Edward frowned. "What do you mean? They hurt my feet, not my mind." "True," replied the man. "But what if each pebble is teaching you something? If you look closely, you might find they're not just obstacles, but opportunities." That night, Edward lay under the stars, thinking deeply about the old man's words. The next day, when he felt another pebble in his boot, he paused. Instead of cursing, he carefully examined it. To his surprise, the pebble was smooth and polished, unlike the jagged ones before. Intrigued, he slipped it into his bag, thinking it might hold some value. From that moment, Edward's attitude changed. Each pebble he encountered became less of a nuisance and more of a challenge to overcome. He began collecting the unique ones, appreciating their different shapes and textures. Weeks later, Edward finally arrived in the great city, weary but proud of his perseverance. As he unpacked his belongings, he opened the bag of pebbles he had collected along the way. To his amazement, some of them weren't ordinary stones at all. They were precious gemstones, including emeralds, sapphires, and even a diamond. The old man's words echoed in his mind. What if the pebbles are teaching you something? Edward realized that the very things he had cursed had been his greatest gifts, preparing him for this moment. He sold the gemstones and used the money to start a small business, eventually building a life of comfort and success for himself and his family. Years later, when people asked Edward about his journey and how he had achieved so much, he would smile and say, "Life is like a journey with pebbles in your shoe. You can either complain about the pain or choose to see the beauty in the challenges. Every problem carries a lesson or an opportunity, if you're willing to find it." Edward's story reminds us that life's problems are like the pebbles in our shoes. They may slow us down or cause discomfort, but they also hold hidden opportunities for growth. The key is to shift our perspective, turning obstacles into stepping stones and challenges into chances to shine. Remember, every pebble has a purpose. It's up to you to uncover it